Hey, what is up? It's Zach, your YouTube foot doctor. I gotta say, the Asics Gel Resolution 8 has been one of the most popular shoes in the comments section on this channel. It's one of the first shoes I tore down and play tested, so I thought this would be one of the best shoes to check out. What are they like after 4 months of play? So let's get into them right now. So how this went was, after I did my initial review on the Asics Gel Resolution 8 clay, I actually gave him to a buddy of mine who plays a lot. They play half on clay, half on hard. Gave it to him, said, do your worst for 4 months, then give them back to me and I'll check them out and see how they played afterwards. I found some pretty interesting things about them, starting with number one, the fit. Now, if you remember from my previous Asics Gel Resolution 8 videos, the hard and the clay versions, you do get a lot of heel slippage if you don't do the runner's knot or the cat's cradle technique as I showed you in that video. Now, once they've been worn in for 4 months, you really don't get that anymore. The midsole really collapses down into you, and I had zero heel slippage in these shoes 4 months later. But with all that contouring that happens after 4 months of using these, some other disadvantages happen. Obviously, you know, typically when you step into the Asics Gel Resolution 8, it feels like you're stepping onto a bounce house. The flight foam is just really nice and dense, gives you a really secure feeling under that heel. However, once it's bottomed out, you do start to feel the ground a little more. If you see on the serve test, 23.5 centimeters, and that in of itself isn't all that bad. However, when you see me coming down off of the serve test, you can see the shoe is just pronating like crazy. That midsole is just not holding your foot in anymore. So even though you are getting a better fit and a little bit better feel when you first go into the shoe, once you actually start playing in them, you can really start telling how that midsole is just really not giving you a lot anymore. It's just really not holding your foot up. It's not acting as the harness that it used to. Even the Trustix system and that polypropylene external heel counter just really don't hold up after 4 months like they do when the shoe is brand new. But what did hold up just eye-poppingly well on this shoe was the Dynabar and the Outsole tread. Now, starting with the Outsole tread, remember this shoe was used 50% on clay, 50% on hard. The person that was using them does not slide on hard courts, but he does slide on clay. And as you can see, in the real high wear areas, a little bit of damage, about 1 millimeter of decrease in tread depth. However, in the low wear areas, the sole really doesn't look much different than it did when I came out of the box. Now, on the toe dragging part here in the toe cap, you are seeing a little bit of scuffing. However, for 4 months to the naked eye, this shoe really doesn't look all that bad. And no pun intended, but where the rubber met the road, the shoe still performed exceptionally well. On the suicide test, 14.9 seconds, you can see, taking those really sharp turns, the dyno wall was still compressing and expanding really well. So the shoe was still giving me a lot of energy return for a shoe that was 4 months old, and I really think that had to do with, number one, the grip of the outsole, which was still really good. I really wasn't slipping at all. And number two, the energy return from that dyno wall. It wasn't as good as when they first came out of the box, but it was nothing to sneeze at. But moving north into the uppers, I actually thought they felt better now after 4 months. You know, they had a lot of time to break in. Because it's a polyurethane upper, they really aren't the most comfortable when you first step into them. They can be a little stiff. However, after 4 months, they've become a lot more plush. They fit my foot a little better. They accommodate better, and really not a lot of wear because of that really strong polyurethane cage that goes around the whole face of the upper. Now, the shoelaces, to my surprise, did not wear completely down. I really do not like Asics shoelaces. I think they're a little bit flimsy. However, they did stand the test of time. They're still intact. They're still tying the shoe down pretty well. Now, this Dyna wrap here that kind of closes the shoe down, you can feel that a little bit more on your forefoot and like kind of your distal midfoot all the way kind of up into the ball of your foot, because the uppers have kind of lost a little bit of their integrity underneath where they actually meet your foot. You are kind of feeling that a little more, so it is a little bit more annoying. However, it is still holding your foot in pretty secure, so if you don't mind wearing 2 pairs of socks after 4 months, the upper is still going to feel pretty good. But most importantly, you know, what was the playability like after 4 months? I will say, if I was just standing in one spot hitting balls back and forth, they really didn't feel any worse than the Gel Resolution 8s do when they're brand new. It's when you start moving side to side or up and down in the court is when you really start to feel that this shoe is lost a little bit, especially in the midsole. As you can see all that creasing in the midsole and that bottoming out, this shoe is just not giving you as much energy return as it once did. Now, when you're pushing laterally and then trying to go back the other direction, the dyno wall does kind of kick in still because it is a little more of a resilient material. However, the flight foam, it just can't handle that kind of body weight for 4 months and still act like a new shoe. It's just not practical. But all in all, after 4 months and well over 500 miles on the court, these shoes did exceptionally well in terms of longevity. So I will say, if you're looking for a shoe that is going to last you a while, even in the clay model, the Asics Gel Resolution 8 is going to give you a little bit more of a long-term comfort, a little more long-term durability than some other shoes that might be a little bit lighter and a little bit more plush when you first put them in. There is a good saying that, a shoe that breaks in really quick is going to break down really quick, and I think this is pretty evident in the Gel Resolution 8 that when you put it on at first, it is pretty stiff, but after a while, it kind of molds into your foot, and you do get a little bit of a sweet spot there for a few months. But watch out, make sure you're looking for all the signs and symptoms that the shoe is kind of losing its ability to hold your body weight up, losing its resilience, because there is no better way to get an injury than wearing a shoe that is old and is bottomed out and it can no longer handle the movement and the weight and the force of tennis. If you want to make sure that you are well aware of those signs and symptoms, make sure you click into the video over here. And if you want to see a deep dive on the Gel Resolution 8, make sure you click into the playlist over here and subscribe down below. I'll see you in the next video.